So this
Yeah,
film,
so this is totally flip side. This is why I kind of wanted to contrast the two, actually.
Yeah, so we talked about the things you think I'm thinking, which was shot on the Alexa,
SXT, quick
Anamorphics.
locked down, well, Steadicam, but for the most part on a Pee-wee 4. And so very different end of the spectrum is this film called Sparta North that Julia Hart directed and stars in, that we shot on the FS7 with Rokinon Primes, and the camera's rated at 3200 ISO and stopped down. So everything was shot at 3200 ISO.
So this is FS7 at 32, rated 32, because I know that it does, like, you can do the 2000 thing and you can expose it for 800, but rate it
at 2000. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I fully believe that it's a 2000 rated camera, but I tend to rate it at 800. But for this, it was an experiment that I wanted to try because I had done it on a documentary that we shot. We had to shoot a bunch of it at 3200, and I really, really liked the structure of the image. And I felt like it could work really well in a fiction context. And this film, it's just kind of like this kind of gritty fever dream of this woman going back home to her hometown and not really wanting to be there, but wanting to reconnect with people in some kind of a capacity. So I felt like this might be the right place to kind of throw caution to the wind a little bit and push it. So yeah, so there's kind of three different looks with this project. There's this kind of dreamy, safe home look, and then there's this very like free-moving, shaky exterior kind of a look, and this party. This party where it's yeah, kind of like a contrasty, gritty, saturated, sweaty kind of a party vibe.
So you shifted the colors as well as you went through the story?
A little bit. I think there was always it's always on the higher side of saturation, with the exception of the exterior stuff. The exterior stuff is kind of in like a mid-range, like 70%. But the home stuff, this scene here, where we meet her family, especially like this stuff with the mother, it's all this very like glowy. This is all shot with like a quarter soft effects. This is end of day. So we netted the windows with, 3-4 stops of netting outside the windows and kind of let that ambience waft in, adding a little bit of daylight here and there, just bounced. But that kind of exposure on the window is just trying to be.
And you let those burn when in camera?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not blown out, but it's cresting that stage anyway.
And so pause that there for a second.
Yeah.
So the Rokinons, I guess isn't the best because it's a screener copy of it, so it's not really showing you exactly what it would look like. This is like a compressed H.264 something. But
yeah.
That said, the Rokinons, do you find them a sharp lens, or can they be at a certain point? Or like, were you wide open on this?
On this stuff, I would have probably been about like 2.5 to 8. They're 1.5s down the line, and they bloom like crazy when they're wide open. They just really like, which can be a creative choice if you want it to be, but I think if you're looking for like continuity throughout the lens, it's not really the best place to sit.
So I find it interesting that you put like the soft effects you said you used on this on top of those lenses, where I mean, what would be the difference for you of just shooting them wide open and letting them do their thing versus putting the soft effects on there?
I think that I'm not always the biggest fan of just like a completely reductive depth of field. Like I like there to be a certain amount of depth of field, especially in fiction. I think in music video and that kind of like fashiony film stuff, you can get away with it, that tight depth of field a little bit better. But in fiction, you want it to feel like you can see a little bit more, I find, unless it's a real stylistic choice that you're making.
I guess you don't really want the camera to get in the way of the story.
Yeah, you don't want to make that decision without having like consciously made that decision.
Yeah.
You know? So with the Rokinons, I feel like they're really sweet at around 2.8, 2.5 even. And so that's where I tend to sit. And so I added the soft effects for this home stuff because it's a safe place where there's no threat and everything's great. It's like a family with a happy baby and his mom and dad. And you really don't know anything about the film at this point, and it's kind of this like weird scene where like, okay, I guess everybody's happy. See, like,
and this is still everything's at 3200 still at this point.
Everything's still at 3200.
So that's a consistency.
Yeah. And lit, you know, I wanted to have a little warmer inside. You feel that cold outside. Not to be too daunting or anything, but just that there is a separation between those two. So, you know, we're probably riding about 4,000 in here, and we got like squeezed down China balls in a blacked out thing.
Yeah, so this isn't lit with this practical. What you've got above it, do you have a grid set up above? Or
I have a 2K boom with 2 China balls wrapped in with a black around them, and probably about 2 200s in each China, squeezed down to like 50 or 60%. So it's probably sitting around like 2,600, 2,700. Yeah, and then after that we go outside into colder places, but still,
this is great, the flare stuff you did here.
Yeah, and that look,
nice moments.
I think the great.
When I saw this, I was like, this is Ian's style again.
Flares. I think it just worked out nicely that this was the time of day that we shot this. I can't say that was necessarily like the plan was to always have this heavy flare, but we knew that this scene needed to be end of day, and so it just really worked out nice. This is actually the small town that Julia grew up in, so she kind of knew a few of the spots that we wanted to hit.
Cool.
The way that they flare though, like that, I really like the Rokinons. I think it's nice to like look at 2 films between the things you think I'm thinking was shot with beautiful glass, you know, Cook Anamorphics, and then contrast that with kind of, I don't know, not as professional glass. I mean, the argument can be made, right, that these things are $500 a piece, but I've used them on so many things, mostly documentary, but more and more in a fiction context, and I'm always really, really happy with them. I think they're like a nice little tool to have in my pocket. I don't know about people's individual preferences, but I tend to gravitate towards them more than I would like a set of CP2s or something like that. I really like that they have, you know, the teeth on the side of them, a manual aperture.
Yeah, I know a couple well-known DPs in the city that use them on their projects as well, and you're always surprised, but when you see the films, you're like, oh.
Yeah,
all right,
does the job.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I just bought them because I was broke, and now I love them. But so then this is this more kind of like loose style. We walk her through. She gets quote unquote shot, but you never see it happen, and she spends the rest of the film with a gunshot in her head, and it's just a big metaphor essentially, of like, I've changed. Nobody has seen that I've changed. You still think I'm the same person, but I'm glaringly different in my mind. And so it's kind of this big metaphor of like, you wouldn't even notice if it was right in your face. And that kind of carries through all the way through the film. And so we play her like really dark throughout this, you know, pretty underexposed. We're making a lot of efforts not to shoot her head here. Or if we do see her face, it's underexposed, or we're just under her eye level where you wouldn't see it, or her hair's in the way. And she finally comes into this party that she's been planning on going to, and she's very, very underexposed. Sees herself in the mirror, even more so, and then you see the gunshot for the first time. And then we wanted to pull her out from that, and so when Glenda McGinnis, who plays her friend, comes and pulls her away from the mirror, she's about, you know, stop or so over, and this is like, all right, get out of your head, come into the party. So there's this like a nice beat after this where it's kind of like, come, like, okay, we're here, and now we're gonna, you know, go and enjoy the rest of the night. And so something should be said about this in general is that we didn't have this location when we planned to film. And this location becomes the hero location for the next 10 minutes of the film. We started shooting on day one, and within a couple of hours, the security of the building that we were shooting at was like, no, you can get out of here. We don't care what you told us. You're not going to shoot here. So we had a whole, team show. There's a 4-day shoot, and it quickly became a 3-day shoot because we had to load in, load out, and then spend a feverish kind of couple hours, or longer really, figuring out where we're going to shoot the rest of the film. And our production designer, Zoe Walton, she offered up her home, the backyard, to shoot what is the final scene in the film. And we had already mapped out at the first location everything for that scene, but we got to Zoe's backyard and we just kind of I'll try to find a wide. Got to this backyard, and she and I just kind of
Yeah, I love the way it looks.
threw as many Christmas lights as we could on the wall. It was like, God, because it was otherwise there was nothing there, and we had really nothing to motivate light back there other than like a patio door or something. And this is we didn't want to show the home because it wasn't going to look anything like the apartment that we thought we were going to be shooting at. Mm-hmm. We had no way of connecting it because we didn't have a location. So it's like, well, let's shoot in a corner where no one's going to ask us any questions, and certainly never show the house. So this we just threw up like a big 8x-Muzz bounce with a couple floppies, taking it off for them at the table, and just let the Christmas lights do the work, basically. Which turned into a really nice cross between the two of them. We had a little bit more red on this one side, and it's kind of this nice happy accident with the way that it rims them. We didn't add any red to it. We just kind of took it as it was. Amplified it a bit. I think once we saw that it was doing something nice, I took a string of red and just brought it closer to Kirtan, who plays her brother, just for kind of his cross coverage in there. Where are you? Anyway, you can see how it's kind of like his face is quite a bit more red. I think we just took a couple strings and just brought them a little closer. So that was, we had to shoot the scene that way because we didn't know. Originally, the way it was scripted is like there were crosses in and out of the backyard. There were like other actors that came and like were a part of it. Mm-hmm. But we quickly just had to shelve all of it because there was no interaction available to us, because the location that we had, and based on the days, leading up, we didn't have time to reshoot that scene somewhere. So just kind of bit it and shot it. But I'm happy with how it came out. As far as like a last minute decision. And then we went to set a couple hours early and pre-lit Kirtan's apartment. So the actor that plays the brother was just like, you know what, come shoot in our house. And so we shot in his apartment, which is a beautiful place. He has a wicked apartment in Toronto, like glorious. And we just kind of popped some China balls in the ceiling, dressed it with similar Christmas lights from here and there, and like a few other spots, and kind of let things play out. Julia, as a director that she hadn't, we got her ACTRA membership for this film, so she had never really acted before.
So this was like an ACTRA.
It was an ACTRA show, yeah. And so she put a lot of trust in me on this one to just kind of be shooting it the way that she wanted. Our mutual friend, Anna McGuire, who I've made films with as well, was our AD and also just kind of director, co-director of sorts. You know, she was just there to help communicate between myself and Julia and make sure everybody was on the same page. Certainly Julia's film, but Anna was a huge, huge support. And yeah, we just kind of tried to communicate throughout the whole process. We're definitely wider than from a lens standpoint than we would ever be on the things you think I'm thinking, as an example.
And that was a choice for aesthetic, or a choice based on the location? Or?
Definitely a choice as far as aesthetic. I think location-wise, we probably wanted to be tighter so that we could hide more things. It meant that I had to be lit almost 360 degrees. And we shot this all in the day, and so we blacked out these massive windows that he has with dressing and with other things. But we wanted this to be that extremely intimate, almost awkwardly intimate story where you're just like right in somebody's face for the entire time. And so I would just kind of follow Julie around. We did a lot of takes where the MO was basically, I'm gonna just go to the party, essentially. And so I'm just walking through. I'll get here, I'll go there, I'll sit there, I'll get up, I'll go around. And so I just had this little, the camera with me, tiny little thing just holding it. And Godford Adjay, who is the focus puller on this, is just wireless focus. And just following her around, seeing where we would get to. And it made for a lot of really interesting accidents as far as what the footage is. And I have to give kudos to the editor for putting it all together. This was colored in London, and I have to look up the name of the colorist because we never actually met. I was talking to Julie today, and I was like, oh, I wish we had met. So that Joseph Bicknell.
Joseph Bicknell from London.
From London. I'm not even sure which shop he's at. We had like a great conversation, but
were you there for the grade?
no.
Okay.
No. And I love when you can find a colorist who can kind of unearth some things that you didn't really know that you had in the footage. We always wanted to be more saturated, and there isn't a lot of change from the footage that we sent in. Like, it's a sweaty film, and it was always like, it was just such a warm location that people were just kind of naturally glistening anyway. But it worked out really well, and basically what he did was just kind of took what we had and just added that extra kind of oomph to it, where it gets you a little bit more excited about it. I really love the flavors and the skin tones, and I think that there's a movement back to like a more saturated image now a little bit. Like, we've had our fun with things being based on log footage. And now it's time to jack the saturation back up. I think people are ready for that.
Well, what's interesting with this is there's a lot of reds in this film, and typically, I mean, people have their reservations and different thoughts about working with the Sony camera, the way that sometimes some of the Sony sensors deal with reds. Did you have any concerns when you were looking at the grade on this at all, or I mean?
No, but I also was welcoming that kind of muddiness too. I think I had read a bit about the problems with red lighting and Sony sensor before this, but we just kind of went in for it, and we knew that we could pull things out. There's a scene that happens in the bathroom. It is completely red. We just took a whole bunch of our Christmas lights and taped them all over the ceiling and put a piece of diffusion on top of it, so it's like a full ceiling of red.
Yeah.
It was almost like a bit of a like fuck you to the idea that the camera couldn't take red, because in the script it very simply says there's a red light in the bathroom, and I was just like, well, why don't we just make it just a soup?
Yeah.
Just a red soup.
Yeah, I mean, the only real concerns that I've come across when you're dealing with that color is when you have to intercut two different cameras.
Yes.
Then it becomes a concern because they both have different responses to color.
Yeah.
Just like film stocks did
when
you were shooting film, right?
Of course. And then, I mean, that we would never have that problem on this. I mean, but I think that once you kind of get into the like noise level. Like there is a noise threshold in the footage. I know it's tough to see in this screener, but there is a level of just general grime in there. Like it's not clean. And once you get used to it, it's welcoming. It's kind of warm in its own way. I like the feeling of it. I haven't shot another thing since this film that sat at that level on the FS7 because I don't know if I found the right story to tell with that again. But it's definitely something I want to explore again.
Yeah.
And
well, you did explore it with, well, maybe once that film gets released on the one you shot on the Alexa and you pushed it here at 1600.
At 1600, yeah, this feature acquainted, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can get away with that because coming back to a 2K DCP, a lot of your noise level is going to kind of disappear in the down res. But for this, I don't know. And it's very different too, just the way that the noise threshold works on an Alexa versus an FS7. I think 3200 on an FS7 wouldn't even be as clean as 3200 on an Arri Mini. But I think we just wanted to embrace that and just see where it took us. It was like a risk we were willing to take. And I think I'm really, really happy with the results of it. Too.
Well, film was great.
Thanks, man.
It's interesting, a lot of your approaches for this dramatic storytelling is with China balls. It seems like you kind of gravitate towards using those for a lot of things.
Yeah.
When you got to go 360, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes you're not, whether it be pancakes or China balls, I've always been a fan of just setting an ambience. Even if that ambience is 2 stops under or something that allows exposure to exist. And then having, whether it be practicals or side lights or lighting the background. Like this, frame, for example, it's with Andy McQueen. He's not really lit. I think he's getting a little piece of that China ball on his face. But it's the practical on the wall, the Christmas lights, they're doing a lot more of the work.
Yeah, your separation's there, but you're not doing any traditional kicker hair light things like that.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think if you look around the apartment, the way that it's lit, and same with the apartment and Things You Think I'm Thinking, it's about kind of like placing, it's when they come out. I'll play this like dance sequence. It's Anna McGuire in the bathtub. But you'll see it's like, it's a bunch of like coverage of the party, and it's more about the lighting that's in the peripheries than anything else. It's really kind of dark right in front of the lens. And you just see that there's like practicals hanging in the background. There's just a china hanging on top, basically.
it seems like, well, yeah, there's oftentimes throughout the film when I watched it, there's points where you selectively chose to be on a wider lens and be right into someone's space to feel like you're in their head, and you feel that.
Especially when Julia's character is starting to get a little bit more drunk or lost.
Yeah, even at the very beginning of the film, after the first gunshot goes off there.
Yeah, we're wide and like right in her face.
Yeah.
And that's something that Julia wanted to play with, really. It wasn't we discussed, but she had done a film before this that was a little bit, lensed a little bit longer. And this one that she wanted to have it feel, nice and close. And we did a couple of tests before we went just to kind of see the look of a close-up,
Yeah.
And we landed on having a 16. And the thing is about the Rokinon 16, not the 14, which bands a lot, it's really round, but the 16, the lines are almost perfectly straight. And on a lens at that price point, to have like so little curvature to the image, it's like fantastic. I know that Cabot McNenly, he did a feature with a set of Rokies a while back, and he was like, I'm on the 16 all the time, man, it's so straight. And so, yeah, we sat on that lens quite a bit. This one, no. This frame, no. This frame's probably like an 85.
It's pretty.
Yeah. But again, the reason why is because we had no idea where we were going to be shooting. We didn't know where we were going to be matching. Didn't know if we were going to have windows, if we were going to see outside. It's like, make this as kind of much of a non sequitur location as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Yeah. I don't know if you have any other questions.
This is great. No, you've touched on a lot of things that are interesting for me, so maybe someone else will find it interesting. I don't know.
For
We'll see where it goes.
Cool.
And then at some point we'll sit down and look at some of the music videos you did.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you a tour of all the weird stage LEDs that we throw in the
Yeah.
set.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ian.
Cool, man.
We just shook hands.
We did.
Okay, cool.